Hello guys, my name is Sagar Kasatkar. Today we are going to discuss about PayPal payment integration structure. So for this, I'm going to open Chrome browser. I'm going to PayPal integration, integrate PayPal standard checkout. Okay, here is click on getting started. So we are going to discuss about PayPal checkout works. How PayPal integration will be happen. So we are going to discuss about this. So first one is there are buyers. Buyer means a user which are going to click button or perform actions. This is a buyer. Then second one is merchant server. This is a backend server. This is a merchant page or e-commerce. This is a PayPal JavaScript SDK. PayPal checkout, and this is a PayPal order API. So first one is our merchant server checkout merchant page, and merchant page in it PayPal button, and in PayPal JavaScript SDK so shows the display the button to buyer. When buyer click on button, then the checkout browser pop up. So when the buyer click on this button, the the browser pop-up is opened by PayPal checkout. Then when user clicks on button, then the the create order method is called by of e-commerce, and then the e-commerce e-commerce call the merchant server create order, and the merchant server calls the create order API of a PayPal orders API. So the merchant server calls the post V2 checkout orders API of a PayPal orders API. When when this is called by checkout create order, then the order is created, and the PayPal orders API return the order ID. This order ID is returned to merchant server, and this merchant server then return this order ID to merchant page. Merchant page means e-commerce page. Then this merchant page they return this order ID to PayPal JavaScript SDK, and then by this JavaScript SDK, there is another pop-up is opened to buyer, and this pop-up is of login username and password. Means there is a pop-up is opened to user where user can enter their username and password. Now by this, and when user gets login by using username and password, there are some on shipping address change, means there are address changing option button is there. When user clicks on button on change orders, then on shipping address change is a method is called. So when user approves the request, or so a user approves the payment request by using username and password, then our payment is approved. Then the checkout is approved. Then the order is approved. This order approved is now sent to PayPal JavaScript SDK. Now, this JavaScript SDK calls on approve method of a merchant page, that is e-commerce page, and the e-commerce page of on approve uh, calls the capture order method of a merchant server, and the merchant server uh, calls the API of a capture of a PayPal order API. So through this process is this calling process is handled through REST API. So there is a and the method is used to call the capture method is post. The URL is v2 checkout orders. This is the order ID capture. This this URL is used to call the capture method of a PayPal order API. So when the user capture the when a merchant server captures the API, then the PayPal order API returns the status that is completed, and the money of a user is debited. So this is a PayPal integration, simple working and backend. uh, Now I'm going to explain by using such diagrams. Okay, now I'm going to open a pen. So I'm going to explain PayPal integration. Okay, now let's this is a PayPal. This is a e-commerce, and this is a PayPal backend, PayPal payment backend, and this is a PayPal server. So there are three. That is first one e-commerce. Here is e-commerce. So there is e-commerce. First one here there is e-commerce. This is e-commerce front page. This is a e-commerce backend page. This is this is a validation service. This is processing service, and this is a PayPal provider service. And here is PayPal. Here is PayPal integration. This is a PayPal backend. PayPal. This is PayPal backend. PayPal server. PayPal server. This is our payment server. This is our payment server. This is our payment server. Now, mm, this is our front page. Okay, this is our front page. Here, and this is our backend. This is our front end backend. Front end backend. Front end backend. This front end backend and front end is working on a user side. That means in browsers. So this is a simple, and this is our validation service. This is validation service. Validation. I'm going to name here. This is validation. This is validation service. This is processing service. Processing service, and the last one is this is PayPal provider service. Provider service. When here is button. Here is button when clicks. So here is button. This is a button. When user clicks on the button, then the request goes to front end page, and then the request goes to front end back end page, and then front and back end, uh, this request goes to payment server. Payment server, there is a validation. In this validation service checks the it is a authorization or not, or some authorization process, or rules and regulations are checked in this validation service. So these three are services: validation, processing, provider, and the services have decentralized database. So each has a decentralized database. So each have each service have their own database. I'm just going to this screen. Each service have their own database. Each service have their own database. Each service have their own database. These are the databases. When the request goes to, so the request goes to front page to a button to front end page. Then the request goes to front end page to front end back end page. Then the request goes to front end back end to validation. Here in validation, the all rules and regulations or authorization will checked by authorization. When the all things are okay, then validation service calls the processing service. Then validation service calls the processing service, and here the status is created. When the front end calls the validation, validation calls the processing, then the transactions are saved into database with the status with the status with the status created status with status created with the status created. And they by now when processing now goes to call create order. So that means when the front end page when the front end page calls the backend front end backend, then the validation is also checked. But also with that, the create order method is called of a front end backend, then validation validates the service or users, and then processing, the create order method is called by when by uh, before the create order method is invoking, the status is changed to initiated. Initiated. So now the status is changed to initiated. Initiated. Hmm. Now the process is in the now the process is now processing is a create order method is called. Now the in a processing the processing does not call directly paper server. Uh, mm, mm, so processing first calls the provider create order method and provider call the paper server. So this is a flow of a working. Validation service does not direct call the provider's method. Validation service first calls the processing method and then processing service uh, calls the provider method. And there is a decentralization data of each, and these are the microservices. The microservices has their each different port, each has a different port. So it is a also example it is a working on 8083. Example it is a working on 8081 or 8083, 8080 or 8080. It is working on 8081, 8081, or it is working on 8082, 82. This is the microservices. Now, now we are now in processing. Now the create order before create order method is called the initiated status is created, and that and while on created status, the transactions are saved into database with a status created. Then create order before initializing or invoking the create order method, the status is changed. Created status is changed to the created status is changed to initiated. And now the processing service calls the provider create order method, and PayPal provider calls the calls PayPal server create order API. Through this calling is happened through REST API. This calling is happened through REST API. REST API. This calling is happened through REST API. So the provider calls PayPal's create order through REST API by using URL. The URL is V2 checkout orders. Here is our URL. That is, what is the URL? V2 checkout orders post, and the method is post. By using post, the V2 checkout orders. So by using post, it is calling V2 checkout orders. V2 checkout orders. V2 checkout orders. Okay. By using this V2 checkout orders, the PayPal's create order method is called. When the PayPal server now it is called, then the PayPal server uh, gives response to provider. Gives response to provider. Now PayPal server gives response to provider. Now PayPal server gives response to provider with URL. with a URL and a unique order ID. It is given to provider by PayPal server. What is here? What is given? It is given order ID, order ID and URL. URL is given to provider. Then provider it gives ID and URL to processing service. Then processing service gives ID and URL to validation service. Then validation service gives ID and URL to front front end backend, and then front end backend gives ID and URL to front end page. Now then front end page give this URL to user and opens a login page. Here now user got a login page. This is a login page. This is login page is displayed. Login page is displayed. This login page is displayed by this URL, which is returned by PayPal server. Now the here it is user. Here it is user. Now user enter the login username and passwords and login, and there are some payment operations are performed by users, like like users uh, clicking on the button or something is, so the when user approves the PayPal request, when then it directly interact with the PayPal server. Directly interact with the PayPal server. When the user clicks on the on approve button or of a login, then the request goes to PayPal server, and the in PayPal server the order is approved. Now 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 the login page. One thing is remaining, that is our status. When PayPal server when PayPal server create order returns the ID and URL, then provider returns the processing service. Then processing service, the status is initiated to pending. Initiate to pending. That means pending status. That means the pending status. That means PayPal payment server is waiting for users approval on a payment. So the processing service send the ID and URL to validation. Validation sends to front end backend to front end page. Then user shows a login page on their side, and then user approves the request on clicking some operations or button on click on a button. Then the login, then the request directly goes to PayPal server, and PayPal server the request is approved. Now the front end page. Now front end by front end page. Now now front end page. The now the front end by front end page by login. The on approve method is called now return. On approve method is called by front end page. Now on approve method is called again of a front end page. On approve method is called of a front end page. Now the on approve method of a front end back end is called Then front end back end is calling through validation. Validation called the processing through REST API. REST API here in a processing before in a processing before calling the on approve, the status is changed pending to approved. Now the status is changed pending to approved. Here approved means the user approved the payment. So the our status changed to approved. Now in a processing, the now on approve method is called on approve method. There is a capture method. The capture method is called, and then in capture method it called the provider capture method. So the request goes to provider, and in here provider calls the capture method of PayPal server through REST API. Through REST API. That means PayPal server. So PayPal provider calls PayPal server capture method. So PayPal method capture method. Cap capture method is now called by provider. So when the capture method is called and capture method is called by provider, then the PayPal server process the payment and debit the amount from user's account. So this the process is happened immediately. Now now the PayPal server then returns the status that is completed. Now the PayPal server returns the status that is completed completed completed. Now the status is now the PayPal server returns the status that is completed. Now the provider returns the status to processing. Now here processing now status is changed approve to now changed to success. Now it is going to success. Now it is going to success. Now the status of approved is changed to now success. Now there is a in a create order when user successfully done all the process, then there is a another page of e-commerce is open. Then the processing service uh, returns the status success or completed. Validation sends to front end backend to front end page, and here on a front end page there's some logic is returned. So when the status is success or completed, then the user got the page that is thank you, your payment has been done successfully or something else like that, and the user order is approved, or you now user can purchase the item. So this is all payment PayPal server integration. That's it all about this. Thank you.